Okay, good afternoon. Okay, so I'll be taking the session today. Um, so today's topic, as you all know, is a role of women and women's organizations. Okay, adile, in your syllabus, I think it's written NGOs, SHGs. Basically, it's referring to women's organizations. Okay, NGO and SHG comes in GS2. Okay, so basically, role of women and women's organizations, that is the topic. We have 4 questions today, 3 10 markers and 1 15 marker. Okay, all set? Shall we start? Are we expecting more people? All right, okay, let's start. Okay, so the first question is a 10 marker. Yeah, start. Need not write down the question, okay? Don't waste time, start writing. Done? Let him. Okay. Okay. So, shall we discuss? Do you need a break? Okay. So, let's discuss the questions. Before starting the discussion, we'll just discuss about how like UPSC is asking questions in this area, and at the same time, what are the things that you need to focus on in this topic and in general in Indian society. Okay, so you might have seen some of the PYQs from this topic. Of these 4 questions, I think 3 of them are PYQs, except the last one. I think the other 3 are PYQs. Okay. So in Indian society, the question is role of women and women's organization. Okay. In generally, in Indian society questions, when we look at the context of the question of women, primarily what are we looking at? We're looking at the issues that are faced by women, right? That is a most important area that we'll be focusing. So what are the issues that women are facing? Secondly, the status of women. What is the current status of women? How much is their employment rate? Like how much are they participating in the economy? Okay, how many of them are part of the startups? Like how many of them own startups? Or how many of them are part of the director boards? Okay, or what is the stats related to the violence faced by women? Okay, what is the stats related to the domestic violence? Then gross enrollment ratio of girl child in schools. Okay, healthcare, the access to healthcare for women. Okay, what else? The amount of budget amount that the government is spending on women, right? So, angane namukku nokkumbo we'll be able to see that in various fields, okay, social, political, economic. If you look at the global gender gap report, you can see that they have divided it into 3 areas. Those 3 areas, apart from that, various other areas also we can identify. Ivade okke women's status endana. Okay. Ittareyum data ningal collect cheyidu ningalil undengil, that is more than enough to substantiate your points with data and example. Okay. You can refer to reports like the global gender gap report, then the NFHS 5, the National Family Health Survey 5, then the various economic surveys. They usually have a section on inclusive growth. So in that section mostly there will be some data or some case studies, examples, etc. related to women. Okay, what else? What else are you referring to? Or like what else have you come across, reports and all? NCRB report. Labor force participation rate. So yeah, NCRB report, then the labor force participation you get from the NSO's surveys, then periodic labor force survey, then there is something called as time use survey. Okay, recently a time use survey was conducted, if you would remember, which spoke about the number of hours that women spend on unpaid work, okay, which is much higher, I think around 7 hours per day, whereas men spend about 1 hour or 2 or something on unpaid work. Okay, unpaid work is care work. Okay, either taking care of children, taking care of elderly in the house, etc., or household chores, etc. So you can still find more, like World Bank reports. Okay, World Bank reports can also be used. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the World Bank had put out a report regarding domestic violence that was happening during the COVID pandemic time. So like that you will find a lot of reports. Now, since we are looking at society, so this same topic will come in social justice also, right, in terms of vulnerable sections. So what is the difference between the two? In GS2, in social justice, we'll be using the same data and stuff. In society also, we'll be using the same things. But what is the difference when it comes to society? How should we be looking at women's issues in society? Sociology ഉള്ളവർക്ക് കുറച്ചും കൂടെ ഐഡിയ ഉണ്ടാവും ഇതിനെക്കുറിച്ച്. What is the difference? Yes, okay. In terms of writing answer, yes, you need to have keywords that are specific to society or the keywords that you study in sociology. The main difference is the lens in which we are looking. We are mostly looking at the social problems that are faced by women and the position of women in the society. Okay. So what are the ഒരു question ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു social barriers, right? How government schemes, program and the implementation, how it is helping overcome social barriers more than the economic benefits, right? When it comes to social justice, is much more a wider canvas where we look at the economic aspects also. Here also economic aspects come in, but political aspects also come in. But ultimately, it goes to the point of talking about the autonomy of women, okay, their financial independence. All of this lead to the question of how empowered are women. Okay, it is all interrelated, but the answer will be more in the form of talking about the social aspects of women. Okay, so even when you're looking at the issues, we'll be talking about primarily the issue of patriarchy, right? എല്ലാം patriarchy അടിയിൽ വരും, but patriarchy is the most important word. So whenever there is a question on women's issues, if you don't write this word, I mean, you have to write this word. Okay, definitely you have to mention this word somewhere, because this is the broad issue that women are facing, and it is because of this all the other issues are happening, right? Yeah. Anyway, when we discuss the questions, we'll come into the various other issues. Okay, so there are a lot of issues. Then we can identify the issues as well as the positives from the status of women. Now the question is, some questions per society, if you look at, they don't necessarily talk about what are the measures to address these problems, because sociology or society is primarily an analysis of the issues. You can talk about the suggestions and solutions as an additional point, but that is not the key focus. The key focus is analyzing what is the issue faced by women, right? Whereas in social justice, you would be writing about what measures have to be taken. Even here, we were looking at or critically analyzing the measures taken by government and seeing how it has impacted the status of women. So again, it's an analysis of the existing situation, right? So there also, you'll see a slight difference between social justice and society. So what you can do is, once you start writing and like once you write more answers, or like once you study this topic, you will come across, as you said, a lot of keywords. So note down those keywords and make sure that when you write answers again, you write it down. Like you write it in and bring it in your answers. Okay. All right. So issues, status of women. Then coming to the way forward, or like what futuristic conclusion or way forward should we bring in, or what alternative perspective can be brought in ചോദിക്കുമ്പോൾ, we can talk about how various social measures can be taken to address the various issues, instead of just focusing on ഈ സ്കീം കൊണ്ടുവരണം, ആ സ്കീം കൊണ്ടുവരണം, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കൂടുതൽ എന്താ എക്കണോമിക്കലി എംപവർ ചെയ്യണം എന്നൊക്കെ അതൊക്കെ പറയാം, ബട്ട് ഇറ്റ് ഷുഡ് ബി ഓറിയൻറ്റഡ് മോർ ടുവേർഡ്സ് the social empowerment, like community participation, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റീൻ്റെ അവയർനെസ് ബിൽഡ് ചെയ്യുക. Okay, we need to also educate men, our aspect, bring awareness in men as well, and also overcome cultural barriers. Okay, അങ്ങനത്തെ കുറച്ചും കൂടെ ഒരു സൊസൈറ്റി റിലേറ്റഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ആസ്പെക്ട്സിൽ ചിന്തിക്കാൻ നോക്കുക, which will enrich your answer much better than if you think from the other aspects. Okay, and also nothing wrong in writing other points, but primary points should be mainly related to the society angle. Okay, that will make your answer stand out. All right. So now let's look at the questions one by one. Okay. Okay. So the first question was, Yes, distinguish between gender equality, gender equity, and women's empowerment. Why is it important to take gender concerns into account in program design and implementation? Okay, so how did you start this question? It's a little tricky because the question is starting with a direct question, distinguish between. So how did you write the introduction? Yeah, so patriarchy can be one way of starting. You can talk about how patriarchy is the reason why gender injustice is happening. So these things are important, or like the government needs to take or the state needs to take proactive measures to address gender injustice. Then you can talk about this. Then you can directly come to the first part of the question. Any other? Introduction. Okay, I'm sorry. Online, there are people, right? I forgot about that. Okay, I think online also a lot of people have responded. Okay, someone has asked if we can talk about some philosopher in this question. You can write, but I don't know if you will get a lot of additional marks for that. Okay. Global best practices, gender as a social construct, gender importance in policy formulation and important. Okay, so someone has said that gender as a social construct. Okay, that is again a more what do you say, society way of looking at it. The gender is a social construct, and it's not an objective reality. So gender is more of a social construct that can be brought in, but then you have to link it to the idea of gender justice. Okay, gender is a social construct, and therefore it has led to this gender inequalities. In this context, gender justice becomes important. Then you can come to the first part. Okay. Then gender importance, yeah, you can talk about the importance of gender justice in policy program implementation, etc. All right. So, intro, okay. If intro, you directly, did anyone directly go to the first part? No. Okay. Any other way of writing? You can talk about DPSP. Okay, part 4 DPSP article you can mention, and then you can say that the government is obliged to address gender concerns. In this context, gender equality, gender equity, etc. are important. And then you write this difference. Okay. Or you can give quote, not quote, you can give a data. You can quote a data, or you can quote a report, like Global Gender Gap Report says that so and so number of years, it will take so many number of years to arrive at full gender justice in India or in the world or something like that. It's a broad question, so you can write in the world also. Okay, then come to gender equality, equity, and women empowerment. Now in this, you can see that you can write it in two ways. One is you can draw a table. Okay, a table അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഇങ്ങനെ എഴുതിയ അല്ലേ, അതോ ഒരു പാരഗ്രാഫ് ആയിട്ടാണ് എഴുതിയത്? അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പാരഗ്രാഫ് ആയിട്ട് ഹാസ് എനിവൺ റിട്ടൺ? You have written as paragraph. Okay, so yeah, that is another way of writing, but one way is you can make it 3 columns. So gender equality, equity, and then women empowerment, and then corresponding points you mention. Okay, so the first page of the answer can be the first part. Okay, because if you look at the second part, I don't know how many number of points we can generate for that. So first one page you can give for the first part, and the second page for the second part. Yes, it is possible that you may not have points for the first part also, but then korchu thallandi varum. Okay, appo you might have to do that. We can draw table. Okay, crucial concepts to create a progressive and developed country. Okay. All right. So what is gender equality? Okay, I have the same rights as men. What is the difference between gender equality and gender equity? Why? That keyword should come in. So gender equality refers to giving equal concerns, like giving equal rights, giving equal equality in status, etc. But equity refers to, yes, level playing field, ensuring level playing field. That can be a keyword. And also you have to add the additional keyword of that, the fact that women are historically disadvantaged. That is the reason why gender equity is required. Okay, so that is the difference between gender equality and equity. Now what is empowerment? What is the difference between, so isn't equity empowerment? No? Equality can also lead to empowerment, right? Equity can also lead to empowerment. But then why do we need to specifically talk about empowerment? Any guesses? PSR students, come on. You can think about, okay, PSR karkanenge I have idea parnaram. Rawls, Dworkin, Amartya Sen. No? Yeah, okay, so thing is, see, equality refers to formal equality. What is formal equality? You're giving equal legal rights. You're giving equal, you're saying that you're giving this equally, but it's just that it exists there. Okay, in what do you say, in paper. Okay, equity is the realization that even though these equal opportunities and equal rights, etc. exist, women won't be able to come and get it because they are disadvantaged in a particular way. Okay, so in first portion, that is gender equality, you write about how government, the constitution has article 14, article 15, etc., which talks about equality. Okay, some laws are also there which talk about equality. But even though article 16 is there, which talks about equal economic opportunities, how many women are actually participating in the economy? Very few. How many women are actually in the Lok Sabha? Only 13.6%. So this shows that there is some other problem that exists in the society, which is the reason why they are not coming to the forefront and participating, despite there being no restriction for women to come and participate in the elections, right? So here the Nari Shakti bill comes in as an equity idea. It gives women that additional advantage of 33% reservation to come and be a part of the parliament. Now this is the equity perspective. But even this does not ensure that women will actively participate and be able to engage in policy making. They have to know how to do that, right? Again, due to historical issues, women may not have had the exposure or the education or the necessary skilling which enabled them to have that kind of an exposure to or understanding of these issues. Or maybe they have a double burden issue. Maybe they are handling their home and at the same time participating in policy making. So maybe they may not be able to completely involve in that. Now it is here that women empowerment comes in. You have to additionally give them training or ensure that they get education. They ensure that they are able to actually fully participate in employment activities. Ensure that their mental health concerns are addressed. Okay, all of this has to be done additionally over this to ensure that their capacity is built up. This is the concept that Amartya Sen says, capacity building. It's not just sufficient to give a person a cycle, but you also have to teach them to cycle. Right? That's the idea he gives. So the same thing here. Empowerment means it includes the element of capacity building. Right? So that is the difference. So when you write empowerment, you have to talk about how capacity building should additionally be included. Right? Then you give examples of examples like the SHG bank linkage program. There you are giving training also. Then you can talk about Stand Up India scheme. Okay, Stand Up India is where government is giving additional support to startups by women, SC, ST, etc. Right? So these examples can be brought in. Got Startup India scheme is in general for everyone, but Stand Up India specifically focuses on vulnerable sections. So entrepreneurs who are women or SC or ST, they are given that additional. What other schemes can be mentioned as examples? Women empowerment. Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. Because there again, women are, or children, girl children are being empowered through education. Right? That can be considered as empowerment. That wouldn't be equity per se, because equity would be ensuring that they get access to education. But Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao also focuses on ensuring that they take education and they continue, right? So we can write it like that. What else? Sorry? Ujjwala scheme. Ujjwala scheme would be. Yeah, okay. You can say it's empowerment in a way. Yeah, because they are also being given the ownership, or like they are considered as the household, owner of the household and all of that. So that can also be mentioned. Kudumbashree, okay. Yeah, so someone has pointed out LGBTQ. Yeah, LGBTQ can also be mentioned. It would be very difficult to balance the two. Like, since it's gender and not women empowerment, I mean, here women empowerment, here gender equality is also mentioned. The examiner's perspective is primarily women. Okay. If there was an LGBTQ angle to it, they would have mentioned it somewhere. But if you bring in LGBTQ angle, it will add value to your answer. Okay, so in your first two parts, you can bring LGBTQ angle. Women empowerment on a third part, so maybe, I mean, you cannot bring it there, right? And in the second part of the question also, you can talk about LGBTQ, but again, only to show the examiner that you are thinking out of the box, or like you are thinking one step ahead. So you can maybe write one point, or maybe in one example you can mention it, but don't make it like half the points are women, like half the points are LGBTQ. Then you might not address the whole question. Okay, and maybe you may not even get enough points also that way. Okay, upper first part manasalayo? Clear? Any additions that you want to give? Nation state split initiatives, not necessary, because first part you don't have a lot of time or space to write. So some examples can be central government examples, some can be state initiatives also. Doesn't matter, but don't just write only state initiatives. Central government examples will be more relatable. See, ultimately the purpose of examples here is to show the examiner that, see, we know what this concept is. So write an example that is relatable to the examiner rather than something that they have never heard. Okay, the purpose is to communicate to the examiner that, see, I know what gender equality is, equity is, and empowerment is. Got the idea? Okay. Next part. Okay, this is I think, again, more trickier than the first part. What did you understand from this question? Why is it important to take gender concerns into account in program design and implementation? What did you write? What is the first point that all of you wrote? Yes? Okay, different needs. So that was your first point. Because women have different needs, so you need to design your program in such a way that their needs are addressed. What else? Inclusive? Okay, inclusive development. Again, concerns of women are different, so needs, concerns, same idea. Correcting historical wrongs, yes. That is also one aspect of gender justice. So actually inclusive growth includes that as well. So it's like you can write it as 2 points. Either you write inclusive growth or this point, and then you can write correct historical wrongs. Okay, I think I'll write these points down. So first was the differing needs of women. Okay, or you can write address inclusive growth or inclusive development or inclusivity. Okay, you understood the first point. That women have in certain cases needs that are different from men. Okay, so or like the way in which a program needs to be implemented that are specific to women may be different from what the way in which you have to implement for men. You might have heard this idea that public spaces are designed in a way that suits men, or certain programs are designed in such a way that the majority population men aanennulla oru concept ilana. Okay, so that causes problems for women. Okay, so one example is that of public infrastructure. Often public infrastructure is designed based on the height and weight of an average man. Okay, which is not, I mean, that should not be the case, right? Should take into consideration women also. So that aspect. What example did you give for this? For this point? Nutrition needs. That is a very good example that you can mention. Then concerns. You said who said concerns? You said concerns. No. You said you said one more point after that. Historical injustice. So the next idea is that to address the historical injustice that women have been facing, because that is also the role of government, not to address the problems that are happening today, but also to correct the historical wrongs, right? So in that perspective also, this is required. Avada you can mention any of the examples that the government is taking. For example, Nari Shakti Bill is an example, or you can talk about reservation in employment, in jobs, etc., or schools, etc. So correcting historical injustice or wrongs. What else? So yeah, that point can come, but I would say write the social aspects first and then come to that, because that's like gender concerns need to be taken into account. Once you take into account these gender concerns, this will happen, and this is like an additional advantage. So towards the end, last few points can be the additional benefits that happen because of that. Okay, first you exhaust all the points that address the gender concerns, and then the benefits that come out of it. Okay, there are more points. That's why I'm asking you to prioritize it after that. What else? Violence faced by women. Yes, that is another point. You can talk about how there is a need to reduce the violence faced by women. Violence and discrimination. You can write it as a single point. Okay. Need to reduce violence or discrimination faced by women. Yes. So one person has said inequality and underrepresentation. Patriarchy, yes. Improving global GDP. Break the stereotype of pink collar jobs. Okay, so patriarchy again, as I said before, patriarchy is one point. But when you mention patriarchy, you bring it in the context of, കുറച്ചും കൂടി elaborate ചെയ്ത് specific ആയിട്ട് എഴുതാൻ നോക്കണം. So when you talk about patriarchy, it can come in under any of these, right? Because ഇതിൻ്റെയൊക്കെ reason patriarchy ആണ്. But you can talk about how there are a lot of cultural barriers that women are facing. Okay, it can be due to customs, it can be due to religious certain concepts or ideas, or it can be due to social barriers, certain social barriers that women have. The mobility, the lack of mobility that women have, right? Or the lack of safe environment, as you said before. So all of that pertains to the same point of patriarchy. So you can say one point you can write is to address safety of women and ensure safe environment for women for their own development and welfare. Okay, നല്ല safe environment ഉണ്ടായാൽ മാത്രമേ അവർക്ക് പുറത്തേക്ക് വരാനും അവർക്ക് കാര്യങ്ങൾ ചെയ്യാനും ഒക്കെ പറ്റുള്ളൂ. Right, so safe environment, safety of environment to ensure mobility and welfare of women. Yeah. Okay, എനിക്കറിയില്ല, not sure. Gender dividend, I don't know. Okay, what else? What did you write? Yes? Sexual division of labor, or you can say double burden. Okay, either of the two words you can use to address that. Okay, because women who are working have the additional burden of taking care of the household. There you can mention the time use survey. Okay, NSO's time use survey, which talks about the fact that women still continue to engage in unpaid labor work much more than men. Right, so that can be mentioned there. Okay. Yes, you can talk about emerging threats. So you mention in general emerging threats, and you write digital violence or cyber violence, cyber discrimination. What else? Lack of access to digital platforms. That is also a concern. So as an emerging threat, you can write multiple points. Our example, I എഴുതണമെന്നില്ല, ഇതന്നെ examples ആണ്. Okay. Okay, what else? Yeah, you can interpret with other women, other genders as well, and not just women. But I would say, like, just one point you can additionally write, because since the question begins talking about gender equality, gender equity, and women's empowerment, so it's clear from the question itself that the examiner is primarily focusing on women, right? So you can additionally write other genders. One point maybe you can write, because see, ultimately one side you're writing all of these points. എത്ര പോയിന്റ് എഴുതും നിങ്ങൾ? 5-6 പോയിന്റ് കൂടിപ്പോയാൽ അല്ലേ? അല്ലെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾ ഭയങ്കര ചെറുതാക്കിയിട്ട് ക്രിസ്പായിട്ട് പോയിന്റ്സ് എഴുതിയാൽ മേ ബി 7 points ഒക്കെ എഴുതുമായിരിക്കും. ബട്ട് സ്റ്റിൽ അതിലൊരു 5 പോയിന്റെങ്കിലും നിങ്ങൾ വിമൻ ഓറിയൻറ്റഡ് ആയിട്ട് എഴുതണം. ഓക്കെ, 1 or 2 points additionally if you write LGBTQ and all, it's fine. Yeah, ensure equitable access to schemes, accessibility to schemes. Yeah, then all of these are examples. Ensure equitable access to schemes. Then ensuring that the schemes are implemented in a way that are suiting women. Additionally also it talks about implementation, right? So there are a lot of cases where the government officials are misbehaving with women, or like the implementation in such a way that it does not consider the women's aspect. So you can talk about the discrimination faced by women in public offices, right? That can also be mentioned. Then you go to the other aspects, that how it addresses GDP, it improves GDP, how it leads to the reaping of the demographic dividend of women. Yeah, so a lot of points very apathanne. Okay, but important thing is you have to write examples also along with this. At least for the first 3-4 points you write examples, then you just fill it up with more points. How did you conclude? Gender budgeting. Yeah, gender budgeting is required to ensure that this happens. That's one way. What else? Yeah, create an equitable and welfare society. Yes, avoid glass ceiling and glass cliff effects. Okay, yeah, these are all points that can be added. Okay. What else? Conclusion. എന്താ എഴുതിയത്? നിങ്ങൾ എന്താ എഴുതിയത്? നാരീശക്തി എഴുതിയോ ആരെങ്കിലും? നാരീശക്തി. വേറെ? സൊസൈറ്റി ആയതുകൊണ്ടാണോ നിങ്ങൾ മിണ്ടാതിരിക്കുന്നത്? കമോൺ, എന്തെങ്കിലുമൊക്കെ. എന്താ എഴുതിയേ? ഒന്നും എഴുതില്ലേ? കൺക്ലൂഷൻ എഴുതാൻ പറ്റുമോ? സമയം കിട്ടിയോ? ഇല്ലേ? ഓക്കെ, ചിന്തിച്ച സമയം പോയല്ലേ? Okay, so one point is gender budgeting. So it's like a way forward. Okay, you have to focus on gender budgeting. Pinna you can just summarize and say that all of this is important. Okay, therefore ഒന്നും കിട്ടിയിട്ടില്ലെങ്കിൽ വെറുതെ അങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ എന്തെങ്കിലുമൊക്കെ എഴുതി വയ്ക്കാം. ഓക്കെ, ചിലപ്പോൾ സമയം കിട്ടില്ല, അപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെ എഴുതാം, തെറ്റൊന്നുമില്ല. ഓക്കെ, so yeah, you can end by quotes. Okay, that is also possible if you have studied ഒരു quote-ഇല്ലേ that if women are the എന്താ വിമൻസ് പ്രോബ്ലംസ് ആർ അഡ്രസ് ദെൻ മൊത്തം സൊസൈറ്റിയുടെ പ്രോബ്ലം അഡ്രസ് ചെയ്യുന്നു, അങ്ങനെ എന്തൊക്കെയോ കോട്ട്സ് ഒക്കെ ഉണ്ട്, അപ്പോൾ അതൊക്കെ എഴുതാം. ഓക്കെ, ഇറ്റ്സ് അപ് ടു യു, യു ക്യാൻ പ്രിപ്പയർ ആൻഡ് ദെൻ റൈറ്റ് ഇറ്റ്. ഓക്കെ, നെക്സ്റ്റ് ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ. Okay, explain why suicide among young women is increasing in Indian society. Okay, again, കുറച്ച് ഡിഫിക്കൽട്ട് ആയിരുന്നല്ലേ? എന്താ എഴുതി ഇൻട്രോ? സ്റ്റാറ്റ് എഴുതിയോ? എന്താ സ്റ്റാറ്റ്? ഉണ്ടാക്കി എഴുതിയതാണോ? എന്താ എഴുതിയേ? $11% increase in women suicide. Oh, you knew this data? You knew this data? Yes. വേറെ എന്തെങ്കിലും സ്റ്റേറ്റ്? വേറെ എന്തെങ്കിലും ഇൻട്രൊഡക്ഷൻ ഉണ്ടോ? I wrote NCRB, but I wrote some other made-up data. I wrote 40% suicides are among men of age group of 15 to 50 years. I don't know. What else? ആരെങ്കിലും made-up data എഴുതിയോ? എഴുതാട്ടോ, കുഴപ്പമൊന്നുമില്ല. ഇഫ് യു ഡോണ്ട് ഗെറ്റ് എനിത്തിങ് യു ക്യാൻ റൈറ്റ് സംതിങ് ദാറ്റ് യു മേക്ക് അപ്പ് ആൻഡ് റൈറ്റ്. ഓൺലൈൻ? ഓക്കെ, ഓൺലൈൻ അവർ എത്തിയിട്ടില്ല അവിടെ. വേറൊന്നും എന്താ എഴുതിയേ? വിമൻ ആർ ഫേസിങ് എ ലോട്ട് ഓഫ് ഇഷ്യൂസ് ദെർഫോർ ദേ ആർ സൂസൈഡിങ്. അങ്ങനെയാണോ എഴുതിയേ? പേട്രിയാർക്കി ഈസ് ദ റീസൺ വൈ ദേ ആർ സൂസൈഡിങ്. See, you can say like, see, I have gone through this phase, so I know. I still go through this phase at times, so don't worry, we're on the same plane. എന്താ എഴുതി? ഒന്നും എഴുതിയില്ലേ? അങ്ങനെ ചെയ്യരുത്. അവിടെ എന്തെങ്കിലും ഡേറ്റ എഴുതണം. 10%, 11%, 12%, 50%. അവർ ചിലപ്പോൾ 60 കണ്ടാലും അവർ ചിലപ്പോൾ ശരിയായിരിക്കും എന്ന് വിചാരിക്കും. ഡോണ്ട് വറി, അതൊന്നും പ്രശ്നമല്ല. യു ക്യാൻ റൈറ്റ് യുവർ ഓൺ ഡേറ്റ. NCRB 2022, someone is saying 2022 ആണോ? ഓഫ്, ഹാറ്റ്സ് ഓഫ്. ഇത്രയൊക്കെ ഓർത്ത് വയ്ക്കണ്ടല്ലോ. യാ, സോ റൈറ്റ് സം ഡേറ്റ. ഇഫ് യു ഡോണ്ട് ഗെറ്റ് എനി ഡേറ്റ, യു ജസ്റ്റ് റൈറ്റ് യുവർ ഓൺ ഡേറ്റ. ഇനി അതും ഇല്ലാന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ യു ക്യാൻ ലിങ്ക് ഇറ്റ് ടു സം കോൺസെപ്റ്റ്. ഇപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾ സോഷ്യോളജി സ്റ്റുഡൻ്റ് ഒക്കെ ആണെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഏതെങ്കിലും കോൺസെപ്റ്റിലേക്ക് ഇത് ലിങ്ക് ചെയ്യാം. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ യു ക്യാൻ സൂയിസൈഡ് എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഉണ്ടാവുക? പ്രോബബ്ലി ബിക്കോസ് ഓഫ് മെൻ്റൽ ഹെൽത്ത് ഇഷ്യൂസ്, റൈറ്റ്? ഓർ മെൻ്റൽ സ്ട്രഗിൾസ് ദാറ്റ് ദേ ആർ ഫേസിങ്. അൾട്ടിമേറ്റ്ലി അതിലേക്കാണല്ലോ എത്തുക. അപ്പോൾ യു ക്യാൻ ടോക്ക് അബൌട്ട് ഹൗ വിമൻ ആർ ഫേസിങ് മെൻ്റൽ ഹെൽത്ത് കൺസേൺസ് ഓർ ലൈക്ക് ഡിസ്പ്രപ്പോർഷനേറ്റ്ലി ഹൈ മെൻ്റൽ ഹെൽത്ത് ഇഷ്യൂസ് ഫേസ് ബൈ വിമൻ. ആ ഒരു പെർസ്പെക്റ്റീവ് ഒന്നും എഴുതാം. ജനറലി എഴുതിയിട്ട് വന്നാലും മതി. സ്റ്റിൽ ഇറ്റ് വിൽ ബി വാലിഡ്. ദെൻ വാട്ട് ഡിഡ് യു ഡു? So there is only one single dimension in this question. Reasons. Anyone did something else? Okay. 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 Decriminalization. Okay. Previous question answer. Okay. Current situation was mentioned. All right. So what you can do actually is that current situation can be mentioned and various, basically before going into the reasons, you can maybe draw a sun diagram or a spider diagram, and you can mention a few other dimensions. Okay, it can be the issues faced by women. Okay, since we are talking about reasons for suicide, you can talk about other reasons or other issues that are faced by women, just to give an value addition. Okay. Or you can talk about, it will contribute, but then it will not be a repetition of that point. That point will come in a different way. It should just appear that you are writing something additional, that's all. Okay. Karanam, you'll be, otherwise you'll have to write some 10, 12 points after that as reasons, which we may not have. Okay. So it's always good if you can add a spiral diagram or a sun diagram or a figure or some flow chart which shows, but flow chart will be, made up flow chart will be very difficult. You'll be writing women and then women facing issues and then issues leading to mental health issues and then leading to suicide. Diagram and all will look very bad. So don't do that. Just draw a spiral diagram or a sun diagram and then maybe you can write issues faced by women or social issues or mental health issues faced by women, something. And try to write some points. Even if it's going to give repetitive points later on, it's fine. Because that additional diagram will fetch you some marks, or at least the examiner will think that, oh, this person has done something different. Okay, just that effect will be there. Okay, now coming to the reasons. Okay. Coming to reasons, what is the first reason that you wrote? Okay, ഒരുപാട് reasons ഓരോന്നാണ് എഴുതിയത്. Okay, we'll just list out the reasons. Violence faced by women, domestic dowry issues, cultural or social expectations, double burden related mental health issues, what else? Lesser education or awareness leading to such mental health concerns which they don't know how to address. Okay. Another is lack of accessibility to healthcare. Okay, women are disadvantaged in terms of accessibility. Then early work-life balance pressure. Immaturity is not. Okay, I wouldn't say don't write that. Okay, that will give you negative marks. Okay, dowry issue I can understand, but the other point I wouldn't say you should write. What else? Discrimination, yeah. You can mention that point, but how do you directly bring it to the word? I understood. Where is it coming from? Okay, yeah. So women, intersectional women facing various issues. But you have to substantiate it by saying that intersectional means women, they have intersectionality of multiple vulnerabilities, that they may be differently abled, or they may come from an SC or ST background or OBC background. They are women, and then they may be from rural area. Okay, so all of this combined will have an effect. So that's called intersectionality of problems. So that can be mentioned. I think someone mentioned this in the previous question as well. Okay, traumas, then victim blaming attitude of society, early marriage. Yeah, so a lot of points are there. Additionally, one other point that I wrote is mismatch of aspirations and opportunities. That is young women particularly. We are not talking about just women, we are talking about young women. So young women have high aspirations because of they are of the working age group, but at the same time they don't get the opportunities that they want to achieve, right? So this causes a aspirational mismatch leading to pressures. Then you can write all the keywords that we talk about when it comes to women's issues, because as you earlier said, all of these contributes in some way or the other to this. But definitely the question is very specific, how it leads to suicide. So you need to have some data or points related to that. Like if mental health issues, you need to have data which substantiate that young women are disproportionately facing mental health issues, right? But if you don't have data, NIMHANS. Okay, you say that NIMHANS report says that 22% of all, I wrote some data. I wrote 60% depression cases are among women. Okay, need not be true. Okay, even if it's true, I don't know if it's true or not. I'm sorry if it's like that or not like that, but I don't know. I just wrote it. So you just make up and then write all mental health related issues report to NIMHANS report. Okay, NIMHANS. You know NIMHANS, right? Yeah. Okay, just write that. You will get marks. Don't worry. Okay, then child marriage, dowry, etc. We mentioned all of that. Okay, violence, all of that can be mentioned. Now, before concluding, yeah, postpartum depression is a good point. Yeah, glorification of women's strength and resilience and all. Yeah, that can also be said. Yes, weak implementation of law. That is also a good point. It's a diverse point. Like we social issues, no, additional legal angle discuss issue. Okay, so then you can also talk about some measures. Like towards the conclusion, you can maybe again draw a Sun diagram and like 3 measures you can write, because since we are talking about a lot of problems, you talk about how these issues can be addressed. Okay. അങ്ങനെ ആരെങ്കിലും എഴുതിയിരുന്നോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ വേറെ ഏതെങ്കിലും ഒരു കൺക്ലൂഷൻ എഴുതിയോ? കൺക്ലൂഷനോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കൺക്ലൂഷനിൽ ആഡ് ചെയ്യാം അല്ലെങ്കിൽ സെപ്പറേറ്റ് സെക്ഷനായിട്ട് ആഡ് ചെയ്യാം. ഇല്ല, മെഷേഴ്സിൽ എന്തൊക്കെ എഴുതാൻ പറ്റും? More access to healthcare, destigmatizing, how? Okay, you can maybe talk about how community engagements can be done, or so awareness can be built through education campaigns about suicide. What else? Proper implementation of laws and schemes, etc. Then there is this helpline, right? Telemanas, right? That can be used. That can be proactively sought to be brought to women. Okay. Then Sakhi centers are there, right? So these centers can be used to spread awareness about this helpline. So anganeka you can mix and bring about government initiatives and say that this can be augmented with women oriented programs allengi ee mental health related programs angane ningalku link idu parayam pinneyo madi. That is all that's required. Or you can even say that we need a specific national level policy to address mental health concerns of women. That can also be said. Yeah, that can be a good conclusion as well, right? Self-confidence and self-worth, improving that as well. That can actually be a point in somewhere, reasons like lowering self-confidence and self-worth can be a reason for suicide. So yeah, these points can be brought in. Technology, yeah, discourage education support. Okay. Yes. Cyberbullying can be mentioned, yes. That is a very good point. Cyberbullying can be mentioned, right? Sorry? Drug abuse is also an interesting point. That can also be mentioned. Diverse points varu appo. Partner violence can also be mentioned. In fact, partner violence can be one part. There is a data that says that 30% of women face violence from someone that they're close to or they know. I think, yeah, all 30% of all women have faced some form of violence from someone they know. എന്നുള്ള ഒരു ഡേറ്റ ഉണ്ട്, ഇത് WHO ഡേറ്റ. സോ 30% അല്ലേ? എത്ര അല്ല, പിന്നെ ആരുടെ? വേൾഡ് ബാങ്ക് ആണോ? ആണോ? ഓ, ഓക്കെ. വാട്ട് ഇസ് ദ ഡേറ്റ? Okay, okay. I thought it was WHO. Okay, anyway. So the data is there like that. So you can mention that as well. So someone has asked 6 to 7 points reasons and 6 points for way forward. It's still fine, but if you can write 8 to 10 points for reasons and then 3-4 points for way forward, I think you will get more marks. Because the question does not ask for way forward. And it's not a social justice question to give way forward. Right? അപ്പോൾ പക്ഷേ വേ ഫോർവേഡ് കൊടുക്കണം, കാരണം അതൊരു ഇഷ്യൂ ആണ് ചോദിച്ചേക്കുന്നത്. സോ ഇൻ ദാറ്റ് സെൻസ് ഐ വുഡ് സേ equal division of reasons and way forward would not be the right way to address this question. since the directive is explain, right? Even if you write 15 or 10, 12 points or 8, 9 points of reasons alone and then give a good conclusion, still you would get good points. Maybe way forward in ഒരു അര മാർക്ക് എക്സ്ട്രാ ആയിരിക്കും കിട്ടുക. അപ്പോൾ got the idea? Okay, shall we move to the next question? Right? See, again, conclusion can be something like what she mentioned, self-worth, self-confidence or something, or it can be the way forward itself. Okay, that's directly conclusion ആയിട്ട് എഴുതിയാലും മതി. Okay, third question. Empowering women is the key to control population growth. Okay, how did you start? So this is a question from two topics. Population and associated issues എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ ടോപ്പിക് ഉണ്ട്, വിമൻ, രണ്ടിൻ്റെയും മിക്സ് ആണ് ഈ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ, റൈറ്റ്? അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ എന്താണ്, ഡിസ്കസ് ആണ്. അപ്പോൾ ദ സ്ട്രക്ചർ ഓഫ് യുവർ ആൻസർ ഷുഡ് ഇൻക്ലൂഡ് one more element which says that empowering women is not the only way to control population എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് ഒരു ഫ്യൂ പോയിന്റ്സ് നിങ്ങൾ മെൻഷൻ ചെയ്യണം, നമ്മൾ ഈ കഴിഞ്ഞ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യനിൽ ചെയ്ത പോലെ. ഓക്കെ, ഓർ യു ക്യാൻ ഈവൻ ഹാഫ് ആയിട്ട് എഴുതിയാലും കുഴപ്പമില്ല. ഫസ്റ്റ് ഹാഫ് ക്യാൻ ബി empowering women is the key to control, second half can be other measures that need to be taken to control population growth. If you look at this as a question from women topic alone, then you might write the whole thing with one single dimension or single subheading. അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ ഇത് പറഞ്ഞു തന്നത് പോപ്പുലേഷൻ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞൊരു ആസ്പെക്റ്റും കൂടി ഇതിലുണ്ട്. ഓക്കെ, സോ ഇൻട്രൊഡക്ഷൻ, വാട്ട് ഡിഡ് യു റൈറ്റ്? മോസ്റ്റ് പോപ്പുലസ് കൺട്രി. Yeah, but then how will you link it to the controlling population aspect? You're saying that it's already reducing. Okay. Yeah, can be said, but I think it would be better if you would say that it is still increasing. It is the largest country and the population is still increasing and is expected to peak by 2040 or 2041 or something. That keeps varying. But you can say that it was an older data which said that 2041 ആവുമ്പോഴേക്കും India's population will peak. So that is a scary scenario. Then you say that in this context, empowering women is key to control population. Then it's a link sentence. So that is one way of writing. What else? Any other data or some introduction you gave? How did you write it? Okay, so that will come in our answer, right? The question is empowering women is the key to control population growth. So when you, this can be a dimension in our answer. ഈ bodily autonomy ഇതൊക്കെ ഇത് ചെയ്യണം, അത് ചെയ്യേണ്ടത് കൊണ്ട് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അത് ചെയ്താൽ എന്നുള്ള സംഭവം. So you can bring in these keywords in your answer. You can write it in your introduction, but I think it will come in your answer. Did you write it in your answer also? Yeah. What did you? So you wrote that twice. Okay. What else? Women is equated to? Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Poetic intro. That can be done. What else? വേറെ എന്താ എഴുതിയേ? നിങ്ങൾക്ക് എന്താ എഴുതിയേ? ഇല്ല? ജനറിക് ഇൻട്രോ എഴുതി ആരെങ്കിലും പറയൂ? that I wrote a generic intro, please. No one wrote generic intros. What did you write? Okay, women empowerment എന്താണ്? Yeah, that can also be written. Okay, nothing wrong in that. Women empowerment, its importance, you can write like that. Okay, then someone has written total fertility rate and population. That is also a good way of linking. So രണ്ട് ഡേറ്റ വന്നു, population ഡേറ്റയും വന്നു, total fertility വന്നു, and that can be linked and you can write it like that. So anyway, you have to link it by saying that to address population growth or to control population growth, women empowerment is a key factor. So you write that link statement, whatever be the intro, you write the link statement that empowering women is a key factor in addressing population growth, and then you write empowering women as a key to control population growth as a subheading, and then you come to the points. Okay. What are the points? Okay, someone has written that population growth is not merely a demographic phenomenon, but a socio-economic challenge. Yeah, that can also be an intro, but you have to bring it and link it to the aspect of women, right? So, a link statement you have to write. How did you start? Did someone write in paragraph format the whole answer? No. Points. Okay, how many points were you able to generate? 7, 8, 9, 6, 6 to 7 points for the first part. Second part, did you write the second part? No. Okay, so second part is required. Anyway, so first part you got how many points? If you did not write the second part, 7, 6, 8 points. Okay. All right. So, okay, now let's look at what are the points. Right. Yeah, it reduces the, yes, it reduces the total fertility age. Therefore, yeah, lesser children. 1 point. What else? Delayed marriage. I think that's a similar point. Basically, delayed marriage happens because of women empowerment and education. So it leads to reduced fertility rate. Yeah. So same point. What else? Yeah. Financial security leads to women's autonomy, which in turn leads to their greater say in family planning. So it leads to population control. Yes, better education and awareness leads to better awareness about reproductive health and contraceptives, leading to population control. What else? It's a little tricky question. You have to keep recycling from the same idea, but you have to generate different points. Nice. It's a good point. Freedom from societal expectations leading to greater autonomy, again leading to your own choice in terms of reproduction. What else? What else? Yeah, that can be mentioned. It can be mentioned actually. How did you write? Bodily autonomy and abortion. Yeah, the point that she mentioned earlier. Yes, that can also be mentioned. Yes, quality of life of children, and also how does it lead to reduced population? So, yes, that is the point. So, the focus on improved quality of life of the child leads to reducing the number of children. Okay, you might have heard that, right? Where women, like, now they are saying that, okay, if there are 2 children, then avരുടെ education ഒക്കെ ചിന്തിക്കണം. അപ്പോൾ മൂന്നാമത്തെ child is not possible. So some women are like, some parents are now reducing it to 1 child. Okay, because so that they can give the best for that 1 child. Now, why were parents earlier not focused on this? Because there was no concept of education or no concept of paying so much on education. Earlier it was like, you have a child, there will be government schools, they'll go to the government school, and later on they'll go to some college or do some work. or maybe they'll not go to school at all, they'll be a additional labor. So that's where the child labor aspect also comes, like how child labor or like how poverty increases population. This is another linkage, like because what do you say, because child is seen as an additional labor, parents start having more children so that they can support their wage, right? So one more child will earn more. So there is no concept of education there. There is only this concept of one more person in the family means one more person to go to work and fend for the family, right? So when education is given as a priority, this whole concept is breaking down. Child is seen as a person on whom investment has to be made. Then you will reduce the number of children you are having. That is the idea. What else? How will you link it to? Yeah, you can write, but how does that come from women empowerment? It can be linked to bodily autonomy, but then you'll have to write 2 points related to bodily autonomy. Like some women don't want to have natural birth or children, they might prefer adoption. But then our bodily autonomy is on a point, 2 point. Either you can write that or this. Either is fine. It might not connect with a lot of people, examiners, so you write it towards the end. Okay. That's it. Okay, one additional point that you can write is women's role in society improves or improving or empowering women leads to better participation in grassroots level bodies or grassroots level like local bodies, etc., which in turn leads to better policies for women. Okay, better policies in population control, etc., or healthcare, etc., which leads to population control. Okay, so that can also be mentioned. So women empowerment leads to greater participation in grassroots level policy making, which in turn leads to better policies in women's healthcare and population control, or reproductive healthcare and population control. Yeah, so some points that are being brought out here is increasing better knowledge on their right, bodily autonomy, etc., sex education, increasing female labor force participation. Yes. Yeah, we did not mention that, did we? Like if women are engaged more in economic activity, then they might reduce their like if there are a lot of children, they'll not be able to go and look after the do their job outside. So if they are doing their job outside and they're giving priority to that, they will reduce the priority here, okay, to balance it. So there is a possibility that will lead to a population reduction. Okay, political empowerment, making them aware of government policies and incentives. Okay, political empowerment help to frame laws and rules to protect their health. Okay, same thing, the last point that we mentioned. Economic empowerment, increased role, yes. Creation of self-confidence and birth through empowerment help to make informed decisions. Yeah, basically different ways of writing all these points that we mentioned. Avoid population explosion, subparts, equal weightage. So here the question is, should we give equal weightage to the subparts? I would say 60-40 is fine. 60% is for the first part, 40% for the second part. Even if it's 70-30, still fine, because the main portion is women empowerment as the key to control population growth. So I would say 60-40 or 70-30. Okay, so remaining digital literacy, women, okay. How does digital literacy lead to? Right, yeah, that makes sense, yeah, okay. That leads to women getting exposed to more ideas, and they will be able to come out of their social constraints. That can be mentioned. So, okay, the next part is the other aspects. That is, what are the other ways in which population control can be made, or what are the other key elements of population control? So it's not just sufficient to have women empowerment, right? we need to have other elements also. So we need to have a proper population control policy, right? Second, what else? What other aspects can be brought about? We need to have proper investments in healthcare or reproductive healthcare. Then we need to invest in awareness generation in general, not just among women, but also among men, right? So as a society as a whole, awareness generation is required, right? What else? Four or 5 points would be sufficient. 4 points would be sufficient. Anything else that you can think about? Population control. Maybe any best practices that some countries have followed. Okay. Okay, you can maybe link to some existing models, like some countries where women are empowered and at the same time their population is largely controlled. Like for example, European, Scandinavian countries. Sorry? Kerala. Kerala can be an example. Kerala can be a really good example for that. Or like Japan. Countries where the population is graying and at the same time they have good women empowerment there. So you can link it in that way. What could be the conclusion? The conclusion? Nari Shakti? ആണോ? നാലെണ്ണത്തിന് നാരി ശക്തി എഴുതാൻ പറ്റില്ല കേട്ടോ. വേറെന്താ? You can say, you can നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞ പോയിന്റ് കൊണ്ടുവരാം, like how yeah, okay, or you can link it to the question itself. The question has two aspects, right? Population control and women empowerment. We can say that this is, I don't know, it's like a really bad way of concluding, but you can say that women empowerment should not be done for the sake of population control. It has to be done for its own sake. I wouldn't say that should be the conclusion, but if you get nothing, maybe write something like that. What do you write? You didn't write anything? Okay. Can also be said. What else? You can maybe link it to a larger concept of demographic transition. Okay, I think at least so sociology students പഠിക്കുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ geography students പഠിക്കുന്ന ഒരു concept അല്ലേ, demography transition theory. So women empowerment will lead to not only population control but also to transition the economy into a much more productive or transition the population to a much more productive and much more quality economy or quality population, right? And the quality of life as well as in general the society will also transform and improve into a much better one. So it's not just population control that happens, but also population enhancement. Population becomes much better due to women empowerment. So അങ്ങനെ വേണമെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് കൺക്ലൂഡ് ചെയ്യാം. ഓക്കെ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു വേ ഫോർവേഡ് പറയാം, ലൈക്ക് യു ക്യാൻ സേ ദാറ്റ് ഗവൺമെൻറ് ഷുഡ് ടേക്ക് സോ ആൻഡ് സോ മെഷേഴ്സ് ടു address women empowerment and in order to ensure Amrit Kal or like Viksit Bharat. You can link like that. Okay, if you don't get anything, link it to Amrit Kal, Viksit Bharat or SDG 5. SDG 5 is also this. Or another way is empowering women not just leads to population growth, it leads to addressing so many SDGs. SDG 1, SDG 2, SDG 3, like actually women empowering can lead to everything. So you mention all of that. Okay, 3-4 SDGs mention it leads to all of this and therefore greater progress or welfare or whatever. Okay, next question. Next one is also a little tricky. Yes. To what extent have government schemes for women's empowerment in India succeeded in addressing deep-seated social barriers beyond merely providing economic benefits? Discuss. Okay. How did you write this? That's one way of writing. You can take up each domain and then identify how women empowerment in that domain has led to overcoming social barriers and not just economic benefits. That's all that you wrote the whole answer in that format. Okay. Pro con or a table. Okay. Any other format? This question can have number of formats of writing. So how did you all write? Oh, you mentioned the government schemes first, and then you mentioned age-wise. Oh, okay. Makes sense. Okay. Yeah, and then how did you address the social barriers thing? Okay. And then that's it. Okay, makes sense. Yeah, you need to mention briefly the economic, if you can mention the economic benefits also. So the question asks about beyond merely economic benefits. So you can talk about economic benefits at the first, or you can, as you did, you can bring it afterwards and say that it has led to economic benefits as well. But I would say first you mention it. Initially you mentioned that it has led to so and so economic benefits, but beyond that it has led to improving or overcoming social barriers as well. And then you mention the social barriers, either in that format or what she did, or you can, anyone mentioned it by bringing each social barrier and then talking about Chedo. Okay, how many social barriers were you able to identify? Okay. 6. I mean, social barriers which you might not get a lot of points. So yeah, that's there. Any other format of writing this? No. Okay. Anyone wrote in paragraphs? Okay. See here, I know that this question is a little difficult to break down. So at times, if you attempt to write this answer, you might end up writing something that may not address the demand of the question. Okay, I'm going to do a tricky question. So what do you do in such a situation? This can come in the real exam also. So what do you do? I'll try and help you to break it down first. Okay, then I'll come to the comments in the comment box. So here, it says, to what extent have government schemes for women's empowerment in India succeeded in addressing this? Okay, so we have government schemes and we have social barriers. So how have government schemes addressed social barriers? How have they not addressed social barriers? In two aspects. So one way of doing this is identify government schemes for each section. Okay, but government schemes that will not look good, because you write one scheme, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. Then you write how it has addressed. That will take a lot of, you will not be able to bring in all the dimensions in 3 pages. So much better way is to club it under one area, education. So like she said, education that will run the schemes enganeyanu help cheythathu, enganeyanu adu help cheyyathathu. അതുപോലെ അടുത്ത ഏരിയ അങ്ങനെ പോവുക. അപ്പോൾ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ ഉണ്ട്, പിന്നെ ഹെൽത്ത് കെയർ ഉണ്ട്, മെൻ്റൽ ഹെൽത്ത് മെൻഷൻ ചെയ്യാം, പിന്നെ വയലൻസ് അഗൈൻസ്റ്റ് വിമൻ ഉണ്ട്. ഓക്കെ, അപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെ ഓരോ ഏരിയാസ് മെൻഷൻ ചെയ്ത് പോവാം. ഇനി ആ ഏരിയ മെൻഷൻ ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് പകരം വാട്ട് യു ക്യാൻ ഓൾസോ ഡു ഇസ് യു ക്യാൻ instead mention the social barrier that women are facing in that area. That can be the heading. And then again pro con in that format you can write. Okay, you have to mention the cons as well, primarily because it asks about to what extent. Okay, you mention the pros on one side, you mention the cons on another side, like this, maybe like this, like you mention one barrier and you write the positives, negatives. Okay, like in ethics you write merits and demerits on two sides, or like you did pros first in the first part, then beneath that you can write cons. Like there also you can mention. Another way of doing it is first you mention all the pros, one subheading, another subheading all the cons, and then you can mention then you don't have to mention anything else. Like basically you've mentioned both the sides, right? That's what you did, right? You first mentioned the pros and then the cons. So that can also be done. You got the idea? Okay. So when you're trying to break down, you might get stuck somewhere. Okay. So when you're getting stuck at some point, try to think how you can make it more structured under some subheadings. If you get some form of subheading, then you will just be able to write it much better. Okay, ഇപ്പോൾ ഇവിടെ ഗവൺമെൻറ് സ്കീംസ് എത്തിയപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾ വിചാരിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടാവും എനിക്ക് അത്രയും ഗവൺമെൻറ് സ്കീംസ് അറിയില്ലല്ലോ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഇത്രയും ഗവൺമെൻറ് സ്കീംസ് ഇങ്ങനെ മെൻഷൻ ചെയ്ത് എഴുതാൻ പറ്റില്ലല്ലോ എന്ന് വിചാരിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടാവും. അപ്പോൾ ആ പോയിന്റിൽ യു ട്രൈ ടു ഗ്രൂപ്പ് ഇറ്റ് അണ്ടർ സം സബ് ഹെഡിങ്സ് ആൻഡ് ദെൻ റൈറ്റ്. If that is also taking time, whatever idea you got in the initial stage, you just start writing with that. Okay, the idea is to finish in that time limit. And maybe you may not succeed in that whole thing, but at least you will fill the 3 pages. Okay. You have to understand if this is difficult for you, this is difficult for everyone else. Okay. Now your advantage is that you are doing it so many months before mains. So you are already practicing it. So practice more questions like this where you're not able to deconstruct the question easily. Practice it more. You'll be able to, after a point you'll be able to do it on your own. Okay, but difficult ആയിട്ടുള്ള ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് ഒക്കെ എടുത്തിട്ട് സ്ട്രക്ചർ ചെയ്യാൻ നോക്കാം. കുറേ കഴിയുമ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഫാസ്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും. ഓക്കെ, ആ ടൈം ലിമിറ്റിൽ തന്നെ ചെയ്യാൻ നോക്കാം. അപ്പോൾ കുറച്ചും കൂടെ അത് ഫാസ്റ്ററായിട്ട് വന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കും. ഗോട്ട് ദി ഐഡിയ? ഓക്കെ, യെസ്. സോ വാട്ട് ആർ ദ പോയിന്റ്സ്? Initially, what is the introduction you gave? Intro. എന്താണ് ഇൻട്രോ കൊടുത്തത്? പറഞ്ഞോളൂ. നാരി ശക്തി വെച്ചിട്ട് സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്യാം. ഓക്കെ, ദാറ്റ് ഇസ് പോസിബിൾ because question is on women empowerment. Since we have government also involved, you can mention how government is obliged to bring about gender justice or women empowerment by the DPSP. So DPSP can be a way of starting this. Okay. Another way of starting this can be talking about, you can mention some sociology terms like you can talk about patriarchy, or you can talk about some social barriers ne korchum kuda larger perspective il kaanichittu how women empowerment is important in this context nu venengi kaanikam. Okay, so yeah, I'll come to the full way forward. I'll come to that. Okay, someone has asked about way forward. I'll come to that. Yeah, so we need to mention, so first the introduction you give, either DPSP or based on some sociology concept, or you can write about women empowerment. Okay, in general you can write about women empowerment. Then anything else someone wrote? Where any idea undo for the introduction? Yeah, okay. So you write the introduction. Then what do you write? Scheme side, you wrote the schemes. What here, this element of economic benefits is there. So you write that. Either you write it as paragraph or you write it as points, or you can write it as a sun diagram. Okay, you can write the economic benefits of government schemes. Then you draw a spider diagram and then you mention 4 or 5 points. So the examiner knows that okay, you have understood the question, because you know that government schemes for women empowerment have led to economic benefits. So you show that. Then you write a link sentence saying that, however, it has also led to overcoming social barriers. Then you write point number 1. Okay, got the idea? So the question talks about social barriers apart from economic benefits. So you mention economic benefits and then say that apart from the economic benefits, you also overcome social barriers. Point number 1. Now, either in the dimension or in the example or in the points that you're writing, you have to mention which social barrier you have overcome. Scheme പിന്നെ ഈ സ്കീം കാരണം ഉണ്ടായ അഡ്വാൻറ്റേജ് മാത്രം എഴുതി പോയി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ മൊത്തത്തിൽ കീവേഡ്സ് മിസ്സാവും. Okay, so what social barrier has been overcome nu clear aayittu mention cheyanam in your answers. So first let's look at what are these social barriers. Can you mention some social barriers? Yes. What is it? Ketla. Discrimination. Yeah, gender discrimination. That's a social barrier. But you can maybe make it a little more specific. Okay, gender discrimination in women's education choice or in choice of education or yeah, so that you can talk about. Yeah, that can be a separate point altogether. Female feticide and infanticide. Basically, son meta preference. That is the key word for that. Son meta preference leading to female feticide and infanticide. Okay. So we have government schemes for that. We have the maternal. Sorry. Yeah, institutional literacy promoted matralla. We have that act. What is it called? PMNCT. That act is there. Okay. Prenatal sex determination act. I mean, I don't remember the exact wordings, but that act is there, right? So that is a measure, but then still it's continuing. The വേണമെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് എന്തെങ്കിലും data ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ കൊടുക്കാം, ഇല്ലാന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ you can just mention that it is still continuing. Okay. What else? Yeah, objectification of women is another social barrier. So you mentioned how objectification, online pornography, etc. is leading to objectification, and we have laws against that. Okay, so you mentioned the laws. IT Act will cover a lot of that. Then in BNS also we have provisions against it. Okay, then on the negative side you mentioned how cyberbullying and how objectification is still continuing. Even in media you can say that it's continuing still. All right. What else? Educational backwardness is there. Employment backwardness is there. Okay. Violence against women. Okay. Then, yeah, financial dependency. Financial dependency can also be an aspect. That is basically they lack financial autonomy and independence. So that leads to what? That is a social barrier which leads to various issues. So how has this been overcome? Through a lot of schemes are there. One is this SHG bank linkage program, നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ Stand Up India scheme. പിന്നെ Skill India mission can be an example, right? However, still the female labor force participation is less. So that is the con. Okay, still it's less. Still women in STEM field is very less, right? Even though they STEM education, women participation is very high, nearly 40%, but their participation in STEM employment is very less. STEM എന്താണെന്നറിയാലോ? Yeah, science, technology, education, management. So in that field also, their employment is less. So that also you can mention. These are some data that you can actually study, and you know it can be used in number of areas. Okay, so ഇങ്ങനത്തെ കുറച്ച് സ്റ്റാൻഡേർഡ് ഡേറ്റ പഠിച്ചു വെക്കാം. പിന്നെയോ കേൾക്കുന്നില്ല. സർപഞ്ച് പതി. So what is the larger issue? The larger issue is that lack of political empowerment, or you can say tokenism. The word is tokenism. Basically, they are given that position, but they are not given a substantive role in that position, right? So tokenism in politics can be an example. Yeah, schemes can include acts as well. Okay, yeah, double burden. Double burden is a typical social barrier. Okay, because they have this additional burden of household chores and care work, they are not able to go outside and do work. So even if government is doing all of this, it's not leading to any significant this. But however, government efforts are helping this as well. So you can talk about how creche facilities and maternity leave. Okay, these things are ensuring that some states have ensured maternity leave, right? So these things are ensuring that women are able to come out and work, and they are able to handle or balance this double burden. So that comes out. Then you can talk about certain cultural barriers, or maybe religious cultural barriers. So cultural എന്ന് എഴുതിയാൽ മതി, religious എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ ഭയങ്കര സ്പെസിഫിക് ആയി പോകും. ഇപ്പോൾ cultural barriers എന്ന് എഴുതുക. you can talk about restriction in like removal of restriction for women's access to worship. Sabarimala case can be mentioned. So ഇവിടെ government schemes എന്നാണ് പറഞ്ഞേക്കുന്നത്, but it's okay even if you mention some. കാരണം ഈ ആക്ടിൻ്റെ ബേസിസ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഈ ഒരു ജഡ്ജ്മെൻ്റെ ബേസിസിൽ ഗവൺമെൻറ് ആക്ഷൻ എടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ടാവുമല്ലോ അങ്ങനെ. ഓക്കെ, സോ യു ക്യാൻ മെൻഷൻ ദാറ്റ്. ബട്ട് യു ക്യാൻ ദെൻ ട്രിപ്പിൾ തലാഖ് ലോ, ദാറ്റ് ഇസ് അനദർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ ഓഫ് ഹൗ cultural restrictions have been overcome through government schemes or acts. Dowry Act ഉണ്ട്, but then it is still continuing, and you can give examples of dowry deaths or data on dowry deaths. Okay, so yep, PM Jan Dhan Yojana, Mudra loans for women, etc. Yeah, for reducing poverty. So these schemes have been done for reducing poverty. And you can mention how poverty has been reduced among women. It's also, if you have a data, it's great. But you have to also mention that feminization of poverty is continuing. And then you give another data, some data. Okay, or you can say how women are still dependent on men for their income. So there is a pseudo, what do you say, welfare, but then women are not actually experiencing this welfare. They are being discriminated against. Got the idea? Okay. What else? Did we mention restriction in mobility? Okay, women's mobility is being restricted, like when to go out, okay, where to go, primarily because of one, because of patriarchal norms, two, because of safety issues. So government schemes will be more in the terms of in the light of safety, issuing addressing the issues of safety, etc. But then, so that is a pro, and it has led to a lot of schemes. Like there is a scheme called PM, I think PM Ajay. So Atal Jyoti Yojana, something for street lights, LED, basically gram sadak yojanയുടെ ഭാഗമായിട്ടൊക്കെ additionally ചെയ്തതൊക്കെയാണ്. LED ഇടുന്നതാണ്, പക്ഷേ it has led to electrification. Electrification can also be an example, but it has led to street lights in many rural parts of the country. But the violence against women is still continuing, right? So that is the con. Then CCTV installment, etc. A lot of things are She-box. All of these one-stop centers are all initiatives that have been done to address violence against women. POSH Act, ICC, etc. But none of this has actually substantively reduced the violence against women in public or in workplace. Okay, so this can be mentioned, leading to restriction in mobility. But then നമ്മളൊരു 7 പോയിന്റ് കൂടുതൽ പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഓക്കെ, സോ യെസ്, പിന്നെ യു ക്യാൻ ഓൾസോ ടോക്ക് അബൌട്ട്, ഇത് ഒരു ലാസ്റ്റ് പോയിന്റ് ആയിട്ട് പറഞ്ഞാൽ മതി, കണ്ടിന്യൂയിങ് patriarchal influence in literature or media. Okay, that is also a social barrier. Because of this, the idea of patriarchy is continuing through or perpetuating from generation to generation. Okay, so how is the government trying to address this? Through curriculum. Okay, curriculum reforms lode government is trying to overcome this generational transfer of patriarchal norms. One example is Kerala textbooks, right, where the father is seen as doing household work and mother is seen doing work that is supposed to be done by men. So then this is leading to education or awareness creation. On the other hand, how is this still continuing? We can give some examples of how the media or movies are still an example. You know the examples, so that example movies can be given. Okay, and you can mention that it's still continuing, right? So that is the idea. Okay, Pink Police, yes, Pink Police is also an initiative that you can mention. Now someone had asked, existing social barriers not addressed by schemes as a subpart. Yeah, so that is what we did. We did either as a subpart or along with the same part, pros and cons. Yes, now way forward can be given. So if you want, you can give a way forward. But I would say again, conclusion തന്നെ കൊടുക്കാം, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ സെപ്പറേറ്റ് ആയിട്ട് മെഷേഴ്സ് ടേക്കൺ കൊണ്ട് കൊടുക്കാം. Since the question is specifically talking about the overcoming social barriers, etc. The way forward can also be in that lens. How government schemes can be reformed further to ensure that more these issues that we have mentioned already are overcome. അപ്പോൾ എന്തൊക്കെ പറയാൻ പറ്റും? നിങ്ങൾ എഴുതിയോ ആ പാർട്ട്? Did not write that. Okay. So it will take time. Like initially നമ്മൾ എഴുതുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ എപ്പോഴും ആ ഒരു പാർട്ട് മാത്രമേ കാണുള്ളൂ. Even if it's there in the question, you might not see it. So make sure that you remind yourself that whenever there is a issue raised in a question, try it, and especially if it's discussed, make sure that you bring in the additional way forward or additional dimension towards the end. Even if it's just 3 points or something, you can maybe just, draw a diagram like this and write measures taken, and then 1, 2, 3. Just one line, that's enough. This itself will fetch you maybe 1 or 1.5 marks. Okay, so try adding that additional dimension towards the end. Here maybe since it's discussed, you might have to give few more points, maybe 4 or 5 points you can bring, but it need not take a lot of space. ഒറ്റ ലൈനിൽ എഴുതിയാൽ മതി. അപ്പോൾ 5 dimension in 5 line will be over. Okay, you have addressed the point as well, but at the same time you not compromise the rest of the space. Got the idea? So what can be the measures taken? Inclusive policy making. So when you write a broad point, you give an example also. If you're not writing a broad point, if you're directly hitting on the point, then you can write that itself. So in inclusive policy making, you can talk about what example can be given. It has to be something related to social barrier, overcoming social barrier. So maybe you can say that government needs to come up with a specific policy for women empowerment. Okay, so maybe a Nari Shakti policy, something like that. You can make up, okay, and just write that. Yeah, what else? Gender budgeting. Gender budgeting definitely. Then awareness creation and education of children. You can maybe focus on a particular group of children in schools to address these social norms, okay, or to eliminate the patriarchal norms at school level. Yeah, stricter implementation of laws. So in this awareness creation thing, you can maybe give Kerala model. Okay, and give that example of curriculum thing. So if you've not brought it before in your answer, you can bring it in your way forward. Okay. Then maybe Scandinavian countries, some model you can bring. You somewhere, if you don't get any model, you just write Norway model. Okay, it will be right. Okay, Scandinavian countries have really good gender parameters, so you write that. Okay, it will be correct. Got it. See, in social justice, governance, society, etc., any Scandinavian country you write, it will largely be apt. Okay, so you can write ഒന്നും കിട്ടിയില്ല, വെറുതെ എന്തെങ്കിലുമൊക്കെ എഴുതിയിട്ട് ബ്രാക്കറ്റിൽ നോർവേ മോഡൽ എന്നൊക്കെ എഴുതിക്കോ. എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ ആണെങ്കിൽ ഫിൻലാൻഡ് മോഡൽ. ഓക്കെ, അങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ അതൊന്നും ഓർത്തിരിക്കണ്ട. ഇനി നോർവേ മോഡൽ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ എഴുതിയാലും കുഴപ്പമൊന്നുമില്ല, യു വിൽ സ്റ്റിൽ ഗെറ്റ് മാർക്സ്. ഓക്കെ, സോ കൺക്ലൂഷനാണ് പണി അല്ലേ? എല്ലാത്തിനും നാരീശക്തിയാണ്. വാട്ട് ക്യാൻ ബി ദ കൺക്ലൂഷൻ? Okay, include sex education in our curriculum, increase women's political representation. Yeah, that is also a good point, so that they come into policy making, and then programs and all these schemes, etc., will have that thing in policy making. Bring laws for paternity leave to reduce double burden. Okay, that's a very specific point. Way forward but when you're writing broad points, try to cover as many broad points as possible. Okay, this can be given as an example. Paternity leave and all can be given as an example. Conclusion. Quote. Yeah, a code can be prepared. See, for women, you definitely prepare really good content for women. Okay, because UPSC can ask, UPSC will definitely ask this either in GS1 or GS2 or GS3 or GS4, in some form or the other, because that's their policy. Optional also, you can be assured that they will ask a question on women. Okay, last year in paper 1 for political science, they asked in paper 1B anti-Iraq movement and women something. In paper 2 this year they asked red lipstick movement. So, or somewhere in feminist movement or something they will ask. So you can be assured. So whatever optional you are studying or whatever GS paper you are studying, you will definitely get a question on women. So this is a very important topic. Okay. And even if you are not writing an answer on women, in every question you can bring a women element. Okay, a gender element can be brought in. So there also it will be a case study in UPSC ethics paper will also be there. Another area like that is water. Okay, UPSC loves water. If you look at either in GS1, GS2, either in GS1 or GS3, they will ask. Okay, so ഇങ്ങനത്തെ ഏരിയാസിനൊക്കെ നല്ലപോലെ കണ്ടന്റും കോഡ്സും ഡേറ്റയൊക്കെ പഠിച്ചു വെച്ചാൽ you will definitely get a question. Okay, so code can be a conclusion, or you can just conclude the whole thing by saying that, oh, this will have similar conclusions as the previous one. You can say that yeah, SDG 5. Then there is something called as Beijing Declaration. So Beijing Declaration is basically related to gender justice. So you can say it will address or achieve the goals of Beijing Declaration and SDG 5. Okay. I think that should be it. Okay. Any doubts? Anything? I think next 2 classes are also society, right? Okay. All right. Okay then, thank you.